All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Black Scholar. I'm doing another live stream with the African Wahala. Uh, Say hello.
Hi, good afternoon. This is the African Wahala. Thank you,
Yes,
Black Scholar.
yes. And today we're having this video because uh, the African Wahala will want to talk about the issue of delineation and why that's become such a big issue between Black Americans and Africans and other Blacks around the world. Um, and so I'm going to open it up to him to express why he wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I am the African Wahala and I have a YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, I mostly talk about, to be honest, West African issues, especially Nigerian issues, because that's where I originate from. But I also talk about all people of African descent and their issues because I perceive us like we are. I'm talking about people of African descent, like we've had it so bad for so long. Every one of us around the world, or as groups, as individuals, we have a lot of people that are doing great, billionaires, millionaires that are doing very well for themselves. But as collectives, we don't really get the respect. We don't have the finances. The continent of Africa is mostly a mess. There are some countries doing good. But all that frustration made me open the African Wahala, which my own philosophy is that if Africa as a continent can become solid and progressive and begins to develop itself in such a way that the people are we're earning good money, maintaining the environment properly in a sustainable fashion, raising good families, and just taking care of ourselves. African people or people of African descent all over the world will be more respected. That's my philosophy. I believe that's just how human psychology works. Like the Chinese, they weren't respected for so long. But right now in 2025, people respect the Chinese. If you find a Chinaman any part of the world, you would have some level of respect for them because their country, China, is doing great. So that's my philosophy. And seeing the rise of the rhetorics around foundational Black Americans and having a friend, the Black scholar, that we have these conversations together. I am interested to know, just to see from his perspective because he is a foundational Black American and I am a continental African. But I would like to understand from his perspective what is going on and why it is going on. So thank you for listening to the little rant. I'm Black Scholar. Thank you for the introduction.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on and having this important topic. If you said you had some videos you want to share, uh, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Yes. So there is a first video that I came across, and I would just like to put that on the screen for us to see. This is a video of a Jamaican lady, I believe. It was shared by Tariq Nasheed. So I'm not new in the game. I know who Tariq Nasheed is, or at least I have an idea of who he is and what he promotes. So he promoted this particular video that I'm about to share now.
Say, if all African peoples across the globe united to demand reparations from the West, we could end this empire today. I don't know what the fuck it is with this weird ass obsession that Black Americans have with holding ourselves and the fact that we are descendants of slaves over everybody else. But I just want to remind y'all that there are descendants of slaves, African descendants of slaves, all up and down the Americas, baby. As a matter of fact, the majority of enslaved African people didn't even come to these shores. They went to the shores of the Caribbean and South America. People love to uphold Black American resistance as the crown jewel of all African resistance. And let me tell you, okay, we owe a lot of thanks to our brothers and sisters in Haiti and Jamaica, because without them revolting when they did, we would not have been free when we were. The Haitian Revolution literally destabilized the Western empire that existed in Europe. And the West has never let them fucking forget it, which is why they're in debt right now. While y'all boast about the profitability of Black American culture, our tax dollars are literally being used to bomb children in Somalia. They are being used to work with Kenya so that we can have boots on the ground in Haiti. Your tax dollars are going to AFRICOM that is actively trying to destabilize the Sahel states that are looking for independence from the West right now. So if you think being born on this land makes you more exceptional than other Black people, if you think that being born on this land means that you get to have all of your comforts on the backs of African people all across the world, then congratulations, you've officially been assimilated into the American identity. Pat yourself on the fucking back. If you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment a middle finger emoji, because fuck America and its exceptionalism, bitch.
Apologies about the swearing. Do you want me to give my reaction to that video?
And I will too.
I think the lady made some sense. Um, she clearly has an American perspective. She lives in America. She's probably Jamaican, and you know she. It's weird to me, but at the same time, I understand. If I'm being honest, what I'm talking about is she refers to Black Americans as them. So if Black Americans think blah blah blah, me, I would have thought that if I was born and raised in America, I wouldn't refer to them as them. It would be like us. But I also understand that that might not be a realistic perspective because people come with their families and they get influenced by different factors that makes them become who they are. But back to the video, apologies for digressing. I think she made some sense in that nobody's struggles are above anybody's struggles, if that makes sense. Like no group's previous struggles or current struggles should be regarded as higher than another group's previous or current struggles, especially within the global African family, right? For example, the Haitians, she made reference to the Haitians and the revolution and how that would have contributed to the eventual revolution that happened in the United States and some other Caribbean islands and eventually on the continent of Africa. It's all intertwined. It's like a domino effect that kicked off mostly by the Haitians, and then it slowly spread. At the end of the day, we all have different struggles. We've all contributed in some way to our emancipation. Different groups need to get their credit for what they did, but that shouldn't create room for downplaying what other groups did. I'm just trying to react to this and I'm talking too much. But what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, as Black people, we all suffer from anti-Blackness and white supremacy specifically. So she's right. Where she is wrong is that nobody Black, whether they be in the United States or anybody who's fighting for their freedom, can't wait until we all get our act together and unite as one people. In Nigeria had their independence movement. Kenya had its independence movement. Ghana had its independence. Various African countries, South Africa fought against apartheid. African Americans fought against slavery and segregation. Jamaica fought for independence. Other Caribbean islands fought for independence. And all you really can do is be in solidarity and support them, but we all have to fight our own battles. And I think the biggest issue is that many Black Americans see like Africans come over here specifically, or Caribbeans also, for a better life, quote unquote. But then you have the resources and the land in your own country. You have have your own language and culture. Going back to especially in Africa. You know your ancestors going back hundreds, if not thousands, of years, and so it's like all you got to do is stand up and and fight for your land. Whereas Black Americans and other blacks in the West are quote unquote behind enemy lines and are captives of this system, and we basically have to kind of adapt and assimilate in order to survive. So that's what pushback comes in.
Hmm.
So that's what that is. And then when people say, you don't have a culture or you're lazy or stop complaining about racism,
Yeah.
then you come into the belly of the beast. What are you talking about? So I think that's what many Black Americans some
An issue.
have a disagreement with her point of view. So
But what do you think about her point saying that Haiti, not just the Haitians, but some other people, African people in the
right.
West that have had those revolutions, and
Mhm.
they've also lived in the epicenter of white supremacy and racism. Not as much as Black Americans, because Black Americans have done it consistently for 400 years, but
I
like
believe
the yeah, like the Haitians now, they are mostly predominantly people of African descent in their countries, and they are really suffering because of the uh, sanctions and the intentional destruction of their economy, and also because of some corruption within their political system. If we're being honest, but I'm just thinking, what do you think about her saying that their struggles should not be downplayed?
well, I don't think anybody is downplaying those struggles. Again, everybody has their own struggle. What she's saying is ahistorical. Uh, yes, the Haitian Revolution did strike fear in the hearts of many slave owners here in America and many others who benefited from the slave system. But there were revolutions and slave revolts here,
Hmm.
hundreds, if not thousands of them, just like there were in Haiti
Yeah.
and in other parts of the New World. And so that was a big impetus for the for abolition and also for colonizing what became Liberia, sending these people back to Africa because we can't have whites and blacks living together. We never as free people, as equals.
Hmm.
So, and then it eventually led to the Civil War. So I would say that the Haitian Revolution did play a role, but let's not overstate that role.
Hmm.
Okay, just like African Americans and leading on sanctions and divestment from South Africa played a role, but let's not diminish the role that the South Africans themselves played in their own freedom struggle.
Yeah, I respect that.
See, so all right, you say you have another video.
Yeah, I do. You just made a great point because at the end of the day, if people can be humble and respect other people, I think we would have fewer conflicts like this. Because a lot of people they go to the United States of America and they start bragging. Like you said earlier, if someone ever tells you, "Oh, you don't have a culture," that is super offensive. So, for many African people, unfortunately, some of our African people that come from the continent, they have that arrogant mentality and they think they are better. Let me explain what I think it is. I think it's mostly people that have low self esteem. If you have inferiority complex, and the way you can feel better about yourself is to downplay or diminish other people. Those are the kind of people that say stuff like that, because it's not even emotionally intelligent for you to tell someone else that you guys don't have a culture. You can't say that to someone. That's disrespectful. So if people can just simply be more respectful to one another, even if you have some weird thoughts in your mind, keep it to yourself. At the end of the day, we're humans from all over the world, and we're trying to, you know, discover other humans regardless where they are from. We're trying to discover other places. And the most reasonable thing you can do is to be polite and be nice to people around. Just my thoughts. But this is the other video that I wanted to share. Do you have anything to say before I share the video?
No, I agree with you what you said, and yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. Okay. So this guy, I'm literally watching this for the first time. I believe you're also watching it for the first time, Black Scholar, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
react to it together. I think he's a strong guy in support of the delineation. But let me talk. I'll just let this guy speak.
There's a whole lot going on right now, fam, where they're trying to take foundational Black Americans and trying to sprinkle us in with other groups. They're always trying to get foundational Black Americans to come cape for people who have never done nothing for us. So you're seeing the whole Democratic Shield apparatus organization pop up, come out the woodwork, and they're all trying to get us to cape for what's going on right now over in the Middle East. In the Middle East, you have two different groups going at it. In both of those groups, let's let this be crystal clear. Both of those groups are anti-foundational Black American, and they're trying to get foundational Black Americans to help them. You know, the same way foundational Black Americans are always getting called on. Now, it's funny, when you start talking about reparations, don't nobody call on us. When you start talking about tangibles, don't nobody call on us. When you start talking about existence, when you start talking about persevering, nobody ever calls on us. They only call on us when they need something from us. So they're upset right now that foundational Black Americans are saying, if you don't help us, we ain't helping you. All of these fake friendships, these we don't really know who these people are, all these groups who believe or they try to sell us that they've been there for us since day one, we've been exposing that. We've been going down the list and saying, you ain't been there, and your ass ain't been there. And I don't care how many times you try to get foundational Black Americans on board, we're not going to get on board with people who ain't never been on board with us. We are taking the FBA only. That door is closed. Gatekeeping approach, delineation, separation, regulation leads to reparations. That's the type of time we're on. There's
My reaction to this is I honestly don't find anything negative in what this guy said because maybe because I have a similar mindset and because of the country that I originate from. You know, we in Nigeria, we are bro. Nigeria is a mess, an absolute mess. So a lot of us are beginning to delineate, similar to what this guy is doing, where we don't even want to, we don't want that name anymore. The name Nigeria was forced down on us. Nigeria was named by a British woman and her boyfriend. They were sent by the Queen of England to amalgamate two geographical regions into a country, and they gave it a name that they pulled out of thin air. The name has no meaning. The entity that it formed 125, 26 years ago has consistently ruined the lives of 80% of the population. So many of us are like, we don't want this entity anymore. Whenever we tell you that, let's come to a sitting table and renegotiate this union, you're telling us no. You pull out the guns, you kill us for asking for that conversation. And for that reason, people became rebellious. And they're like, we want Biafra, we want Yoruba nation, we want Arawa nation. People are beginning to delineate. So I completely understand where this guy is coming from because at the end of the day, sometimes we have to delineate, like go our separate ways and establish some respect for one another and then eventually come back together. I'm not saying we have to come back together as one block, but we because humans have to be relational. You have to form relationships with other people because of trade, because of exchanging ideas or anything else. So we could come together eventually and establish some partnerships or some trade dealings or anything that would move us forward as individual groups. But before then, we need to establish respect for one another by delineating. And that's why I understand this guy's perspective personally. But what do you think about it, Black Scholar?
I mean, for the most part, I agree. Again, some of the stuff he said is ahistorical. I mean, it's not that, but in this instance, yeah, Black people are always called upon to be by other people for their support and for solidarity. And then and when we need help and solidarity, it's not returned. You know, the favor's not returned. So, I mean, that's essentially where a lot of people are starting to attitude has become, uh, especially as vis-a-vis the Democratic Party. Since the Democratic Party is it brands itself as a multiracial, multi-ethnic, LGBT, women's rights, labor rights, inclusive party, as opposed to the Republicans, which is mainly an exclusive party mainly for white people and pro business, pro capitalist, fascist, segregationists, that sort of thing. You
Yeah.
know, elitists, openly elitists. Democrats are elitists too, but they're less honest about it. So I think because black people have spent so much, most of our political capital, most of our vote is in the Democratic Party. I think that's where this conversation is occurring, especially among those of us who are on social media, those of us who are of a certain age, Gen X and
Mm.
millennial and below, you know. Uh, so, yeah,
And it makes sense. At the end of the day, we're all seeking for resources to take care of ourselves, to have better lives in the world. So when people are beginning to feel like they are strangulated, then they would react, and that's what I feel like is going on. But at the end of the day, I feel like, yes, people of African descent all over the world still need to find a way to work together, but because it'll be beneficial for us. And it's a tall task, very difficult to accomplish for us to work together. In fact, like I was saying earlier, even we in this small Nigeria, we can't even work together. Talk more of bringing people from all over the world to work together. But if we can at some point in the future, maybe not in our lifetime, it'll be beneficial for us because we see other groups do similar stuff and it has always been beneficial for them. We see how the continent of Africa is still being pillaged till this day because it's porous. We have countries where the leaders are mostly clowns, they're useless, they're puppets, and they sell off their lands and their resources for the highest bidders while their citizens are living in the worst conditions. So people are angry all over the world due to the scarcity of resources. That's what it boils down to. And hopefully, this whole foundational Black American thing, this delineation situation, does not lead to violence, because that is another aspect that I think might eventually happen, especially to those living in the United States of America, because people are getting so emotional these days. A lot of people on social media panels, they say the craziest things you can imagine. Like they are beginning to sound like you remember the Roots, the movie Kunta Kunte.
yes, yeah,
Some of
yeah,
these guys are beginning to sound like the massa in Kunta Kunte. Ridiculous. So, what do you think about that? Like, people just don't know where to draw the lines, how to control their emotions, and they just go overboard with these things sometimes.
right. And I agree. People get caught up in the emotions uh, and it feels good to emote and express your feelings. And they a lot of times really don't even think about or even care about how that sounds to the listener and how other people might feel about that or how that might alienate other people.
Hmm.
So yeah, I agree. Um, so let me get into what I was going to say as far
Yes.
as history delineation is going about. So you know, I want to say this has come about. This people always have been delineating and um, self-segregating in some form of fashion because people prefer to stick with their own and with what they know. Some of the areas that I saw, some of the complaints, like for instance, many African students have complained, on social media said they've been called the African booty scratcher. I don't know if that's true or not. I've been in the education system going on 20 years, and I haven't heard that. I did hear it as a child growing up, but there were hardly any Africans here. And it was, obviously, it's the kind of thing a child would say to one another,
Yep.
and it's also a reflection of the self-hate that's been internalized. Black hair and black features are inferior to white hair and white features.
Yep.
So, so I haven't heard that in a very long time. So I'm kind of skeptical when I hear millennial and Gen Z people saying that they would call it that. Um,
Yeah.
but that's neither here nor there. I mean, we have other people talk about, well, y'all call us akatas and all that stuff, which means mild animal. I think people
Wild
you know,
cats. Yeah, wild cat.
wildcat, uh, and people feel like that's dehumanizing. I mean, it's like, we supposed to be black, and that's almost like something somebody white or the white racist would say. You
Yeah.
know, um, but like I said, I haven't heard it, and what I have heard as an educator is much worse, and it's not specifically directed to Africans per se. Um, One of the things that when I was a young kid, I used to go to summer program at a local institution called Texas Southern University in the early '80s, and there were Nigerian students just starting to come there, groups of them, small groups of them, and they were all socialize with each other together, and that's and that was true in a lot of HBCUs, historically black colleges, university. The presidents of those institutions recruited African students heavily, and so did the mayors of many majority black cities, because they wanted to have more
Increase the
professionals come,
population.
increase the population, and grow the tax base. Um, Hakeem Olajuwon, who's to me the first well-known African professional athlete. And of
Houston.
course you had Manute Bol and Christian Okoye and some others, who became stars in the '80s. They were, widely celebrated and defended by African Americans against racism and stuff. So, and now when you hear African names, players with African names, um, and they're clearly African when you see them, nobody bats an eye with it. Nobody has a problem with it when they play football or basketball. I mean, it just, I can think of tons of guys with African names, and there's nobody thinks anything about it.
Yeah.
Whereas, say in the '80s or even in the early '90s, it may have been people might raise the eyebrow or something.
Yeah.
Um, when I was in high school, and even before that, African students the few that went there, they got teased, but we all got teased, you know. But they were embraced by the broader black student body.
Hmm.
So when I see, you have certain, particularly Nigerians. I don't know what, I don't know what it is about why Nigerians keep finding conflict everywhere. I mean, everywhere they go, but they were embraced, and yeah. But so when I hear students say, "Well, the white kids like me" and all this other stuff, I mean, I could tell you, I remember having the defensive African students from white kids teasing them and stuff, you
Hmm.
know, making funny sounds and mimicking the African languages and stuff, or sounding like it's some sort of caveman or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think some people are just kind of exaggerating, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. But I just don't, I don't, to the extent that social media is an echo chamber, and even what the guy was saying before on the last video, people hear that and it just reverberates, and it becomes echo chamber, and
Yeah.
it really distorts the reality of what's going on. Um, so I don't see it as bad as it is. I mean, it is, the rhetoric on social media is bad, but I think in our daily discourse, you don't have these issues. I mean, you do have people looking at each other sideways and stuff, or maybe they don't associate as much, or whatnot, but I don't see in the conflict that that it would appear to be.
Yeah. So, sorry to
Ahead.
cut you off there. You know, I was telling you about one video that I seen where, you know, it was between a Black American lady and a Nigerian guy. I think it was somewhere in the state of Georgia. And she was letting him know that, listen, we're not the same. This is delineation happening in real life. This is not an internet stuff. This is real life. But I can't find the video, and I'd love to see it. And I feel like those types of confrontations will be increasing with time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let me. I'm gonna share my screen with you,
Okay.
and I'm gonna. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I saw last night. In preparation of this video, Ghana is delineating from Nigerians and proving Black Americans right. And so, I remember you had a video about a month ago about is comparing Ghana versus Nigeria. And I think we have a lot of that
Yeah.
here because a lot of Black Americans, a lot of Nigerians are here, even more than there are than Ghanaians. But then there's a lot of travel back and forth between the two countries. And Black Americans tend to go to Ghana as opposed to Nigeria.
Yes.
But Nigeria is supposed to be the economic superpower of Africa. Or that's how it's been, described.
It's just on paper. It's just on paper.
Up until recently. So people certain content creators feel like, who are pro Pan African, they say, well, why don't everybody go to Nigeria, etc. But let me look at this. Let me show you this, and then get your feedback.
Another way, because man, I just can't deal with it no more.
What is happening between Nigerians and Ghanaians?
Galaxy, you know what is going on. Okay. The way the Nigerians are people in Ghana is too much.
Do you have any proof?
Yeah, we have a lot of proof. We have a lot of proof in the headquarters. We have a lot of proof. They've arrested some people, some Nigerians and stuff.
Are the Nigerians the problem?
They are the real problem.
How are they the problem?
You want to build your kingdom in Ghana. Aside that, it's wrong. If the killing is the only problem, then you need to go back to your country. We don't need you in Ghana.
So you want to tell me that Ghanaians don't have kingdom in America?
We have kingdom everywhere in the world. Even UAE, we have our kingdom, but we don't kill. We don't mess up.
So do you think Nigerians can wake up and start killing people? Don't you think that something triggered the killing?
There is something, but the only thing we know is Nigeria. That's the name they keep. The people they are catching is Nigeria. Nigeria we know. So they need to go back to their country. For Ghana to have their peace.
But I think this is jealousy. This is coming from the place of jealousy.
No, this is not a matter of jealousy. Ghana, the whole Africa, Ghana is the most peaceful country.
No.
Ghana is the most peaceful place. Everyone goes there and hide, And if this is going on, it means Ghana is no more peace. So the Nigerians, they need to go back to their country.
We are not living Ghana. Ghana is our younger brothers, okay? So I want you to have peace in your mind that Nigerians are not living Ghana.
No, we don't have problem. If you have peace, you stay. But if you have the war, you have to leave. That's the problem.
Hey, do y'all notice how arrogant he is? Like just the arrogance in which he's saying. He's like, yeah, just to let you know, we're not going nowhere. And not even in your homeland. Like you in Africa, but you're not in your homeland. And it's so crazy because now delineation is starting to happen in other places as well. And I think a lot of Africans, I don't think a lot of tethers are going to understand it, especially ones that leave America that leave their countries and come to America. But a lot of Africans in Africa, I think they are slowly but surely going to start to understand the plight of us as Black Americans. They're starting to delineate. They're starting to say, no, see, Black America, we are creating a fucking renaissance that's actually going to help all melanated people. For real, think about this shit. It is going to help everyone because now there is going to be delineation because a lot of, again, this be the tethers, bro. They go to other places and they tether. They going to Ghana and now they tethering. They going to all these other countries, going to Japan and causing bullshit.
Okay, let me
Yep.
stop that.
Yeah. That's quite a lot to unpack.
Right. So the reason I wanted to show you that little segment was the part where the people were tearing up the businesses of the Nigerians.
Yeah.
And I saw that when I was in Ghana 6 years ago. There was a conflict, and I think we talked about it before. It is my prayer that didn't happen here. The rhetoric on social media gives you, is at a boiling point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there could be instances where Black Americans attack African immigrants or people they perceive to be Africans. They may be Black Americans, and vice versa.
Yeah.
My prayers that won't happen. That doesn't seem to be. We don't have that history, that level of ethnic tension here, because in America, everybody of the same race is put in the same group.
Yeah.
So if you're all Black, you basically forced to be Black people. And saying you white, all the white people, we don't have the same level of ethnic tensions like you may have in a country that's all Black or all white or all yellow or all red or all brown. You see what I'm saying? So I thought that's my prayers that it didn't get to that point. I don't think it will, despite the rhetoric on social media. But what do you think?
No, I don't. You know what? Even if there are some instances of some clashes, maybe one or two confrontations that unfortunately might even lead to violence, it wouldn't be on a large scale like we just saw in Ghana, because America has law enforcement, right? I mean, they have thousands of police officers with cars, with roads that they can easily access where the crime is happening. In Ghana, they don't have that. But another reaction that I have to that video of the Ghanaians possibly breaking the shops of the Nigerians is, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what had happened in that situation. But Nigerians, a lot of our people, we often get in trouble all over the world. I mean, you go to some weird countries, you go to like Vietnam, you go to places like Indonesia, and you find Nigerian people that are locked up in large numbers. You'll be shocked that what? How come there are 1,000 Nigerian prisoners in this Thailand prison? Because unfortunately, this is me just explaining my own history. My understanding of Nigeria is that Nigeria trained a lot of our people. Don't get it wrong, we have a lot of good people. Most of the people are good, but we still have that segment of society where we've been trained, excluding myself, but people have been trained to be very desperate in their search, in their quest for finance, for looking for money. They throw out every single moral or anything that makes them normal human beings. They would go to any extent just to get money. Nigeria trained a lot of Nigerians to be that way. And I think it's unique to Nigeria too, because many other countries, they have criminals, but in our own case, it's so bad.
Well, so you saying that they have a get rich or die trying mentality?
Yes, and that's where the problem is, and they take it to any extent.
I hate to say this. I mean, you can call that a ghetto mentality, because poverty forces people to do that, man. People want to get by and get over however they can,
Yeah.
And you talked about the extreme poverty. I think in one of your last videos, you talked about how up until recently, Nigeria was the poverty capital of the world.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of similarities between what's going on in Lagos and some of these other areas and what happens in the worst ghettos in America. So there's a lot of similarities. It's not as the poverty is the material, the actual absolute poverty is not the same, obviously, because America's richer.
Yeah.
But the conditions are the same. They force people to the same dog eat dog mentality.
Exactly.
So I can see that. And then like I say, you know, the guy he sees this situation and he mischaracterizes it and says this. See, Nigerians are going everywhere and they forcing the other black people to delineate because they causing problems. I mean, there are some people who are shady or who are problematic who are Nigerian, but then there are people who actually follow the laws and who just have to be successful, and then some of the local people are jealous,
Yes.
you know, because their leaders aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So I mean, some of that's part of what's going on here. So let me continue with my point.
Yeah.
Um, in the early '90s, like I say, Africans I worked with embraced uh, were embraced, but although some Black Americans did look at them with the side eye or didn't socialize with them, but by this time you had more Africans in the workplace, in schools, and churches, and in Black neighborhoods. Intermarriage took place, particularly between Nigerian men and Black women. You know, Black American women.
Mm.
People say that's because the Nigerian men wanted the green card. I don't know, but some of that was in play, but they did increase.
Yeah.
Uh, Africans complained about being teased or given side off by Black Americans. While Black Americans complained about Africans and other foreign blacks not wanting to be Black, even when it had to fill out certain government and employment forms. And then they started forming separate enclaves. Like here in Houston, the area is Stafford. You know, a lot of Nigerians live in Stafford, which is a suburb outside of Houston. Then many of them live in Alief and Sugarland and Missouri City too, and Katy as well. But
Katie.
it was like little Lagos, I think.
Where, Katie?
Stafford.
Oh, Stafford. Okay.
Yeah, but there, you know. Anyway, the people also Black Americans complained about Africans thinking they're better than Black Americans or kissing up to white people on the job. So those were some of the issues.
Yeah.
I think because so many Africans have come to the country and other immigrants, Black immigrants, because before 1965, less than 1% of Black America were Black immigrants. Okay. So once the 65 Civil Rights Act happened, and then the 1965 Immigration Act that followed, which took off the quotas from non-white countries, then that's when you had all these non-whites coming in.
So sorry to cut you off. In 65, less than 1% of the US Black population were immigrants. What is it now in 2025?
It's about 10% now.
Okay.
So we have 50 million Black people in the country. Five million, at least 5 million of foreign origin. Okay, so they're definitely more noticeable now, especially in the larger cities, especially where they have more concentrations, like Houston. Like I say, that's known as Little Lagos. You have a lot of Ghanaians in Atlanta and DC. You have a lot of Ethiopians and Somalis Somalis in
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. You have a lot of Ethiopians. You know, in the major cities as well. So Eritreans, Kenyans, you know, and then of course you have the Caribbeans, especially Jamaica's being the largest, and then you have people from other parts of the Caribbean, Haitians, etc.
And do the Caribbeans also do that communal stuff where, let's say, in a part of Houston, all this is where you find Jamaicans?
Yes. I think it's more obvious with the Africans because they're Caribbean blacks and American blacks have more in common because we have been westernized,
yes,
to some extent. So we speak the same English, you know, level of English.
Yeah.
The same Anglo religion, Christian religion.
Yeah.
You know, so we can kind of blend in more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with Africans, obviously Africans continue to keep their African tradition. They're what especially now. And I was getting to my point. you know.
So sorry to cut you off again. I'm so sorry. Now that you said this, I'm just remembering, my own first interactions with Africans from the West was in Europe. Like the first time I ever left Nigeria, like 20 years ago, and I'm seeing, Jamaicans in Brixton in London, and they have their community. And when you get to Peckham, it's the Nigerian Yoruba, not even Nigerian, Yoruba community in like Peckham. And when you get to like Brixton, like I just said, you find a lot of Jamaicans, and they also had those clashes. They had those delineation going on, but these days it seems like they are much more integrated in Europe. But sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say
and that's probably. I mean, I've never been. I've been to Europe, but I've not been to the UK, so I don't know. But I would assume it's because of the racism has intensified in the UK, and poverty has increased, and just the level, because of the change of the economy, the global economy, and that's forced all of them to kind of at least coalesce together. Especially since they had a conservative government for about 12 years, and they were trying to deport a lot of black people or blame black people for crime, like they do here. But yeah, you have the enclaves like Brooklyn is known to be have a lot of Jamaican neighborhoods, and so what you would have, what a lot of immigrants do, whether they black or not, they would, once they got into a neighborhood, they would only, and they were able to buy property, they would only rent to their own people. And then to some extent they're helping their people, but then people feel like you're being discriminatory. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if I have the money and I qualify for this apartment or this house, then you should be rented to me. You should not, because that's actually against the law.
I was about to say that I'm very sure the United States should have those types of laws that prevent discriminatory.
Housing discrimination is not heavily
enforced.
Combated. It's not enforced like it should be. We still have a lot of race discrimination. So, but let me go. So it's only like now when it really opened up in 1980. Like I said, black immigrants were allowed to come here, and Ronald Reagan still allowed them to come. And then about 20, 30 years later, 40 years later, now you see it's like, well, where all these Africans come from? Where all these people come from? So now you're seeing, and then you get a different type. Like before, these guys were just students. They were trying to just get their education. They didn't want to make any waves. They wore, Western clothes. It was out of fashion, but it was a, shirt and tie, or, a long sleeve shirt and slacks, that sort of thing. That's what I recall. See, especially these Nigerian men wear, and they were older men too. I think they were maybe in their 20s and 30s, as opposed to your typical college age student who's in their late teens to early 20s. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now you starting seeing the Africans come and they wear their, traditional African garb, and they speak their language, and they cook their foods and everything. So some people are seeing like, whoa, even though it's a small number, they're more noticeable. And then, the tensions they become more tensions now. And as you see newer immigrants who are wealthier and more assertive and more openly expressing their prejudices, saying things like I say, black American criminals are lazy or don't have a culture.
Yeah.
And I just think the issue with social media and election of Trump, obviously with him doing all these deportations, coinciding with people talking about it on social media has made the problem appear worse than it really is. The other thing is the ADOS movement for reparations. Yvette Cornell and Tony Moore started talking about reparations for slavery, and they started talking about DOS, descendants of slavery. They said they got this name from Martin Luther King, who said descendants of slaves, and they make the distinction between slavery and slaves, in that slavery, the institution, is what created us, and its descendants. So we are basically, Black Americans are a byproduct of an obsolete economic system, which is what slavery was. That's why we're here.
Yep.
Okay. So we didn't immigrate here. We were forced here, and then, we're here by default. And had Lincoln not been assassinated, we probably would have been deported back to Africa.
What?
Because that was his plan. As I said, he didn't believe that free blacks and free whites could live together as equals. So his scheme was to deport all 4 million blacks after the end of the Civil War.
Yeah.
But he got killed, and that never happened. And then here we are.
Wow.
Yeah. So what Yvette and Tone started doing was talking about they changed it to ADOS, or American Descendants of Slavery, because they wanted to distinguish from what that lady in your first video was saying. There are black descendants of slavery everywhere. Well, that may be true, but your issues with even the UK, or your issues with Spain or Portugal or wherever.
So let me
finish this. The only people who have a justice claim for reparations here in the United States should be those who descended from the slaves who were here
in America.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question was, although we continental Africans, we weren't enslaved, but directly, but we were also enslaved, and we still are, unfortunately, to this day. And
that was slavery on the continent.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it from compared to what the Caribbeans and the Americans faced. It's different, right? Because we mostly faced colonization. We were enslaved right there on the continent.
Right.
Eventually, we kicked them out, but we didn't. It was all a mirage. And anyways, so my question is: do you think the Jamaican or the Haitian in America should not deserve a penny if at some point in the future Donald Trump or the next president decides we're going to pay reparations to black Americans, and somehow, some way, people are going to slip through the cracks? Even I trust Nigerians are going to try to get some of their reparations.
Right.
So let's say the Jamaicans or the Haitians that go there and get the reparations. Would you be against it? Or would you? I'm not saying you as an individual, but do you think it's something that should be frowned upon?
Well, Yvette and Tone and Tariq Nasheed and all the people who become the online reparations advocates would definitely oppose it. Many of the traditional reparations groups are Pan-Africanists, so they wouldn't oppose it and say all black people should get it. And at one point I had the same mindset, and but this is the thing. The Caribbean, those in the Caribbean, they have something called CARICOM, which is an organization of unity between the Caribbean nations.
Yeah.
And they already have their own reparations push.
Oh, they're pushing against Europe?
Yeah, pushing against Europe. Mainly the UK, but then also France and the Netherlands and whoever else own territories in the Caribbean islands. And so they would get it there. And so if I lived in Jamaica, I couldn't get if UK was all of a sudden pay reparations to Jamaica, I couldn't get reparations. If the UK or Portugal was supposed to pay reparations for what they did in Africa, and I was living in Africa, I wouldn't qualify for that.
And that's true.
And I shouldn't. So now my thing is I'm not so hard-hearted. I mean, if you really want reparations, you need to help us fight them. But the problem is you have many, at least online, black immigrants being opposed to them. And and that's what the whole people call tethers. They say, see, these black immigrants are working against us. And the term tether, which I don't like, I feel that's an ethnic slur. The word tether means it means to be tied to something, like a rope.
Yes, like an attachment.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that basically these people are tying themselves to us or to America or whatever for their own selfish benefit. Or that they're a fifth column, trying to undermine us. And so that's why people are like, you see all these ICE, people are getting snatched up, and deported, and so people are like, ha, see, we told you about those white men, and you didn't believe us, and now you seeing what he's really about. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But So you had that. Then they also wanted to make this thing. Some Native American tribes were slaves as well. So we wanted to make sure that it was going to black people and not natives, because they actually got reparations and have they get benefits from the government for being being natives.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about African American versus black, that's too generic. Black was too generic because we all black if you're a descendant from Africa.
Yeah.
And African Americans was confused because Elon Musk and Charlize Theron and Zoran Mondamiki can't even be African American.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I mean, not really, but
technically on paper, yeah.
Yeah, but no one believe that crap. So they wanted to disaggregate or separate data so that we can know the true condition of those people who are the descendants of American slaves. And then, like I said, they partnered up with Tariq, and then to expand their following, and then the two sides fell out, and then that's when he came in with FBA, or Foundation of Black Americans, which he got from, and partly inspired by Dr. Claude Anderson, who was a proponent of Black economics and self-determination, and he was the author of a book called Powernomics. And so he described Black Americans as exceptional people because after everything we've accomplished, despite all the oppression that we have faced.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of ties the ladies like, well, you're not exceptional, but many Black Americans, when they look at it and what we've achieved, despite of it, we see ourselves as exceptional, and not in the sense like the American exceptionalism that we're God anointed by God to rule over the rest of the world, but nobody else has done what we have faced, what we faced, and achieved what we have achieved despite it. And so, what Tariq came up with was this: he consolidated those concepts of Native Black Americans or blacks who weren't immigrants and the exceptional people into Foundation Black America, because blacks are the foundation of America. We built this country, and it stands on our shoulders. So he started coming up with the whole. He's not a policy wonk. He's not really into statistics and stuff. He came up with a buzzword, delineation. Where we set up lines of demarcation that between ourselves and other blacks and just other people, so-called people of color. And then he felt it was necessary that we consciously identify, because, like I say, even though African American or Black American is an ethnic identity, we don't see it like that because we see things in America in terms of race, so like a super ethnic group. We all strip down. We all become one big black person. We become black, okay, or African, or whatever you want to use. But those are synonyms for the race. So it's odd to start thinking in ethnic terms or tribal terms, here. So, and he's like, well, we're going to close ranks around that, around our heritage and identity, and exclude other people, including blacks from Africa and the Caribbean. I mean, if you're going to be tribal, so can we. If you're going to wave your foreign flag, we're going to wave the American flag and the Juneteenth flag. If you don't want to be black until it's beneficial, do your own thing. Don't expect us to help you from when white people come after you. Don't expect us to help you survive in America. So you have that. So in a nutshell, most Black Americans don't have a problem with Africans or Caribbeans. We are proud of our ancestry, our African ancestry, and whatever else we have in us, whether it be European or Native American. We want to learn and associate with other Black people from other parts of the world, but we just don't want to put up with the disrespect. It's like, and especially in our own country, it's like you wouldn't tolerate in ours. We have enough sellouts and negative people here. We don't need
deal with.
So so delineation here to stay, at least on social media. And I think people are starting to subconsciously feel that. You're starting to see people starting to, wear the cowboy hats and all these different things that represent Black culture from the past, and embrace some of our traditions, food, cuisine, all that kind of stuff. unfortunately, and this is the real root of it, and this is something that we need to just be honest about. Black people, wherever we are in the world, hate our situation. Okay, because we know we're oppressed. I don't care where you are.
Yeah.
The homeless man on the street, the poorest person on the street knows that we're oppressed because of our race.
Yeah.
And so, but you can't help, in some sense, internalize some of that hatred and hate being black. And so, I think part of this is that issue we got to deal with of not being self-hated, hate, self-hate, self-loathing.
Self-hating.
Yeah. So that's a lot of this too. Now, people they'll say, well, I don't hate myself, I love myself. But when you dehumanize another black person or otherize another black person, in a sense, you're hating yourself, or you say, I'm not an African, or I'm not American, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You when you do that, it's a form of self-hatred, even if you don't realize it. So, what do you have to say about some of the things I said?
I just appreciate the conversation that we can at least share our perspectives from different sides. Me, I understand what is going on, and I don't really think we can control it or stop it, to be honest, because it's just the nature of humans. Since we've already been separated and we've become different tribes as a result of the past historical events, then what we are forging ahead is what we have to focus on and fix. And maybe when, as individual groups, we can create something good for ourselves and establish respect, then in the future we might be able to come together and work together. We might, who knows? And maybe we're never going to work together, because at the end of the day, my own philosophy is we are humans, and we can only try to control the world as much as we can. But it seems like nature eventually takes its course. And it seems like right now we're at a point where people are delineating, nations are rising up against nations, people are frowning against immigration, people are wanting to self-protect themselves all over the world. It's commonplace everywhere. And even us in Africa too. A lot of us are still confused. We don't know what we want. People like me, I simply tell them that, listen, we have to end Nigeria. We have to find a way to disintegrate this entity, because it's not taking us anywhere. We are all suffering together. So I understand all these rhetorics, but the most important thing is people need to be respectful of one another. In general, for those people that live in America, I visited the US earlier this year, and everybody I met was nice. I met some Black American guys at a Walmart in Katy, Texas, and we had a long conversation because I was just happy to talk to him. Hey, bro, what's up, man? I'm like, man, I'm visiting, that I'm only here for 2 days. And this guy was telling me a lot of things. And, it's just nice to see people that you just gravitate towards because you like them naturally, because you're from, you share some ancestry. That's my own view of the world. But at the end of the day, at the same time, I also understand that the delineation thing is almost uncontrollable. It's global. It's all over the world. It's going to be detrimental to the African unity on a temporary basis, but maybe it will eventually be beneficial, because if people can isolate themselves, just like the AES did in West Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, we were all celebrating. Me personally, I was throwing, I'm just joking. I was happy when they left ECOWAS, because ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, that is made up of 15 countries or 16 countries make up ECOWAS in West Africa. We are not doing anything. ECOWAS is useless to us. We are poor. We are not benefiting nothing from ECOWAS. So when Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali decided to delineate from ECOWAS, I was happy about it, because I know at some point in the future, hopefully, if they fix their countries and they are able to be self-sustainable, they might come back and establish some relationships with us. By then, it's probably not going to be called ECOWAS any longer. Maybe by then, we in Nigeria would have also delineated and formed different countries and maybe start moving forward. So I definitely see some benefits in delineation. Personally, I see it. But when it comes to the hatred, when people start having that mentality of, I'm better than you because of where you are, like the other video that you shared, where that guy said something about, oh, we Black Americans are trying to delineate, and it's going to be beneficial for the global Black community. I have to disagree with him because that is having a mindset of a savior. Like our activities are going to save the global Black community. I believe that the real activity that would save the global Black community is when Africa as a continent, maybe 50% of sub-Saharan African countries are doing well. When that happens, the global African community will be more respected. But until then, if an individual group like those Nigerians that go to the US and start condescending the people they met over there, telling them that, oh, you're lazy, you can't find work, that's crazy. You shouldn't be doing that. And the same thing, a Black American guy telling us that, oh, we are delineating because it's going to save you in the future. No, I disagree because you're delineating for your own benefits. Yes, I actually cheer you on, but you don't need to show hatred. Because I noticed whenever he used the word tether, he was referring to the Nigerians, right? And sorry, whenever he used the word tethers, it was referring to Nigerians, and somehow the Ghanaians became the good Africans. When we start having those types of mentalities, then we're not really emotionally intelligent because every single country, every single group has good and bad people. So you can't just use a broad paintbrush to describe an entire group as something negative. But I've said a lot.
Right, right, and I agree with you. I basically, to me, the solution to me is always we operate for mutual respect. I have value, you have value. We value each other. We recognize our similarities, but we respect our differences. You know,
Yeah.
where our interests converge or come together, let's work together to achieve them. Where they diverge or separate, let's work on those issues separately. It's
Yeah.
okay to be self-interested and do our own thing. I mean, Wahala has his own thing. The Black Scholar has his own thing. Yeah, we each have our own family, so we delineate in that sense too.
Yeah.
But where our interests come together, then we work on those things.
Yes.
Because I'm working on me, doesn't mean I'm against you.
Yes.
We're not in opposition to each other. We're not enemies, and we shouldn't treat each other like that. And so that's where we have to be careful with the rhetoric, because that will cause people to feel that way, and which is what led to a lot of tribalism and violence, ethnic violence in Africa, nationalistic violence in the Caribbean, and basically gang violence and the high homicide rates among Black Americans, because we see each other as the enemy instead of as a people. So it's okay to be different. I'm be proud of it. I'm not in favor of lockstep unity or uniformity. We don't have to be the same to work together. I'm not in favor of the United States of Africa, because I think all the different African nations have something unique to themselves, and all the different ethnicities within those countries have something unique. I am in favor of an African Union where each sovereign nation works together in a cooperative spirit. So I'm in favor of what we used to call back in the 90s operational unity. Where we work together, even though we're different people. It's like a team. Each player plays their position.
Yeah.
So we are Black in the anti-Black world. So therefore, we must work together. So, that's it, man. I mean, I'm glad we had this convo.
Me too. Me too.
I think it's healthy. It didn't descend into an ugly shouting match, name calling. So it easily could have, and nobody was willing to it. And I'm glad that you showed some a willingness to hear one side, and I was showing the willingness side. So it was a good back and forth, good give and take. I think we should have this in the future, maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, see what things are. So
absolutely,
I look forward to our next collaboration. I look forward to what the people on YouTube have to say. Yeah. So.
And people, don't forget, if you like this type of content, subscribe to our channels, click on the like button, share the video, and have a healthy conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.